Okay, so here we are live once again with another Mcfarlane DC Superpowers unboxing, and this is Batman again, because he sure likes to do Batman figures, don't he? This is allegedly a Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns Batman, but as you can see, it's just the same Batman figure that we've seen multiple times from this line already. Uh, they've done this repaint so many times. Actually, there was one I forgot to take out. I got this the tub that I started putting all these figures in when I was cleaning up a little bit. There's the figure itself. Where is his cape? Don't tell me his cape isn't in here. Well, that means it's probably still on the desk. I do still have some stuff. No, there it is. Okay. I do still have some stuff on the desk, but I'd started trying to put most of my superpowers figures that I had on the desk into this bin. So we're going to talk also about some of the other figures that have used this particular mold. I figure this will be a good opportunity for me to discuss that somewhat, since the last time we looked at this mold, I've noticed some things about this particular figure, so we'll talk about that. There's a manga Batman cape. I'll explain all that when I get to it. But yeah, let's have a look at it. First of all, we got this the 80s style Batman logo, which is appropriate for an 80s style Batman figure. But it's not really a Batman logo that was associated with the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman. We got some nice artwork, some looks like Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. They kind of altered a little bit as far as the emblem and the length of the ears to look a little bit more like a Frank Miller Batman, but it's still not a Frank Miller Batman. It's a Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Batman. And you can argue as to who's the better Batman artist between those two if you want, but it's not really a question of better. It's a question of which one would be more appropriate to put onto what's allegedly supposed to be a Frank Miller Batman. And I think that if it's supposed to be a Frank Miller Batman, they probably should have had a piece of Frank Miller Batman art on the package. I'm guessing this is another example of Mcfarlane just working with what they have in the approved style guide that was given to them by DC Comics. So it's probably not 100% their fault, but it's got to be at least like a little bit their fault. Oh, hey, look, we got a little bit of a sneak preview because I didn't realize this guy was in the way. I really didn't realize that. I'm not trying to tease for an upcoming episode, but he will be an upcoming episode. So there's the tease for an upcoming episode. So anyway, as I was saying before I realized that, I'm a huge fan of Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, actually, and I'm always happy to see his artwork. I just think that, on the Jim Lee Batman package, the Hush Batman, as they call it, where is he? I've got him around here somewhere. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this guy, which is the same mold, by the way. This is the first time we saw this particular mold. He had a Jim Lee picture on the package. So shouldn't Frank Miller's Batman have a Frank Miller Batman picture on the package? I'm just saying. So since this is the same mold we've seen a bunch of times, there's nothing really particularly Frank Millerish about this sculpt. I think I said at the time that there wasn't really anything particularly Jim Lee-ish about this sculpt either. It's just kind of a generic Batman sculpt. It's fine, but we've seen it a bunch of times, and his arms are a little short. We'll point that out as well. But I do think that if you were going to do a Dark Knight Returns Batman, if you were going to do a Frank Miller Batman, at the very least, yeah, you probably could use this body. It is a little bulkier than the Detective Batman body, which is more based on the original superpowers anyway. At the very least, you should have given him a different head sculpt so that he'd have a head sculpt that at least looked like a Frank Miller Batman. I'm just saying, I'm trying to give constructive criticism here. I'm trying not to just be a jerk about it. It's a nice enough action figure. I still bought it. Remember when I was talking about this figure, and what I said about this figure was that, if I saw it in the store and I held it in my hand and I thought, yeah, it's pretty cool, I'll go ahead and pick it up, then I would go ahead and pick it up. I wasn't sure about it. I was on the fence about it until I saw it in person. And if it had gone the other way, I'd probably be here telling you, hey, I saw that Frank Miller Batman in the store, and I just wasn't feeling it, so I decided not to buy it. But no, I decided I'd go ahead and pick him up. So let's go ahead and have a look at the package. That's what the back of the package looks like. You see the cross-sell artwork with all the figures from the line, which I'm not going to go through the whole list now because it's gotten too long. You got 3 vehicles on the back with the Whirly Bat, the Bug, and Brainiac's Skull Ship, which I still need to get. And then we've got the bio, which is in 3 different languages and is barely going to tell us anything about Batman. So let's go ahead and take 2 seconds to read that. In the name of his murdered parents, Bruce Wayne wages eternal war on criminals of Gotham City. He is vengeance. He is the night. He is Batman. So again, doesn't really tell us a whole heck of a lot about Batman. But at least with Batman, I figure that's a character everybody probably already knows. It's not like, Grandma is going to see this on the shelf and be like, oh, I remember Batman from when I was a little girl. And I would watch Adam West as Batman. And he looks like that Batman in the blue and gray that I remember. And pick him up for little Johnny. So, and since I happen to have him right here, we'll also have a look at the all black version of Batman. So that, I think, is all of the superpowers Batmans that I have. We'll get to the other ones that I have in a minute, but I think I have them all over here, all of the Mcfarlane Superpowers Batmans that I have. So I think that's all of them, except for the gold Batman. I don't have the gold Batman over here. And I don't count the Batman who laughs. That's not a real Batman. So let's go ahead and open them up, and then we can compare them to some of these other Batman figures that I've got, and I can talk about some of the things that I've figured out about this figure since the last video I did on this sculpt, which would have been manga Batman. So I don't think I talked a whole heck of a lot about some of this stuff. I don't think I realized some of this stuff yet, but I'm gonna talk about some stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get him out. I'm gonna undo the cape so I can pull it out the back. I feel like that's easier to do that way. And I'm going to put all these bubbles back together. We'll throw those in the recycling in a little bit. And put the cape back on him. Now, what I think is probably actually the biggest problem with this particular sculpt of Batman is the cape. And I say this sculpt of Batman because something that I figured out about this version of Batman is that if you were to pull the ring, the clip, out of this cape, you would find it is the same color plastic as the torso of the figure. Now, what I suspect is the case, what I'm sure is the case, and I'll be very surprised to find out if I'm wrong, is that I believe that this particular piece of plastic is part of the same molding process as when they make the torso with the figure. So, say with, if you were to pull the cape ring out of Sur-En-Arr Batman, you would find a red cape ring. This Batman, I'm pretty sure, would have the same color gray as the rest of his suit, as with this Batman, as would this Batman. Oh, well, not this Batman, because I made this one. I'll get back to him in a minute. But I also made the cape for this particular manga Batman because I wanted to try to get something a little closer to what would have been in the original Superpowers line. Now let's compare these 2 capes. So I'm gonna take I'm gonna leave that on him. I'll take the cape off of the Hush Batman, which is in a different kind of fabric. It's like more of a satiny, chintzy kind of fabric. I don't like that fabric at all for a Superpowers cape. I don't like it for most capes, but for a Superpowers cape, I especially don't like it. So if you look at when I put the original Hush Batman cape onto this guy, I'm going to use both these capes because they're the same colors. You see how high it sits up, like almost to like well over the back of his head. It sits up a lot higher, and it's a lot bigger, and it almost looks like he has like a Dracula collar or something. And that's because this cape clip is way too big for this particular neck. It doesn't fit on there tightly. and even if you try to press it back down, it's going to kind of pop back up. You see that. And I used to think, because of the type of fabric that this came with, is that was what was causing the problem, was this particular type of fabric. But no, it's the cape. It's the cape clip itself. It's like way too big. So if anybody from Mcfarlane Toys is watching it, I figured out the problem. You guys need to fix it. So go ahead and retool. I know it's going to cost you money, but it's going to be worth it for the quality of your product. Trust me. So yeah, I made this cape for this Batman. The gray matches up pretty well on the light from the computer monitor. You can see it's a little more harsh on it, so you can see a little bit more of a differentiation. But in most lights, it looks pretty much the same. So it's like that kind of dark gray, like most of manga Batman's cape and cowl and all that kind of stuff is. And then I made that same cape in more of the turquoise for the Earth 2 version of Batman, which I made out of a manga Batman. So this Batman, going back to the figure I'm actually supposed to be talking about, this Batman has the same sort of problem with the cape clip. And it's going to be a recurring problem with this cape clip until Mcfarlane actually invests a little bit of money in fixing it. Hell, if you don't want to go back and make the extra molds, just make a mold of the cape clip and mold it separately. Make a mold with like 5 or 6 of them in there. Just print them out. I'm pretty sure that's what Kenner did anyway. Because if you look at a Kenner cape clip, they're usually either just black or kind of like a neutral, somewhat translucent white color, like a semi-translucent white, like just whatever color the plastic would normally be before you add a pigment to it. If you do that, if you fix that cape clip, it's going to make all these capes look so much better. Now, that having been said, they do use a much nicer fabric on the capes than on that first wave Batman. So you can see the difference in like how the cape moves and how it flows. And, you know, you can set them in a vehicle without the cape getting all crimped up. You can see how like this one's gotten all like wrinkled and everything. And plus in that first wave, remember how they put the rubber tab through the cape to hold it into the package? Ruined it. Just absolutely ruined it. So yeah, they have improved the cape somewhat, but they haven't really improved it enough, I don't think. Now, the only difference between this Batman and this Batman and this Batman and this Batman is the coloring. And it's another blue and gray Batman. Kevin says, love your shows. My favorite figures will always be the 70s Mego Batman. Yeah, I love the Migos. Those are what I grew up with too. Those were like my first Batman action figures. In fact, it's the magnetic Batman, the 12-inch Batman that they did. That is still one of my favorite Batman figures. So thanks for your comment. but yeah, the problem with this one is still the cape clip. The fabric is nice. I like the fabric. It's kind of a nice spandex kind of fabric. It's not the same kind of fabric they used on the original Superpowers, but it's close enough. It works for me. So let's go ahead and talk about his articulation. So the head rotates all the way around at the neck, obviously. Rotates all the way around at the shoulders. No elbow articulation, no wrist articulation. Remember, this is a 1980s style articulated figure. So it's basically like a 5-point articulated figure. Legs move forward about that far, move forward about that far. And since it's Superpowers, it actually has some extra articulation because it's got an articulation at the knees. So technically 7 points of articulation. So that's nice. So Superpowers didn't have to do that, but they did. They went the extra mile, and I always appreciated that. So the coloring on this figure is really nice. I like it's this really dark blue that's almost black. It's so dark. It's a good shade of blue for Batman, I think. And then the gray plastic, it reminds me a lot of, since I went ahead and pulled it aside, the Iron Winch Batman from the Dark Knight collection / Batman Returns line. And the main reason I pulled him down is he's got a cape that this I've got a few of these, but this is one that has a cape that I made myself. I wanted to compare the the types of fabric while I was here, and you can see that they both look really close on the camera actually. But you can see how like it's that same sort of dark blue. So I was gonna try my homemade cape onto the Dark Knight Batman and see how he looks. And I actually do think that's a little better. It's also since I based mine on an actual superpowers cape pattern, like an actual 80s superpower cape pattern. I got it off the Toy Polloi website. You notice that like that it's a bit wider than the Mcfarlane superpowers cape. Now the later ones, the detective Batman, he's got more like the 80s superpowers cape too. So again, this is the sort of thing where like Mcfarlane could just easily switch over to like this type of cape on this figure, but they don't for whatever reason, and I think that that works to their detriment. I think that it would be a lot better if Mcfarlane would go ahead and just fully update the style of cape on this style of figure, and I think it would just make these figures overall look better. So sometimes in fact, more often than not, they still use this one rather than the detective Batman sculpt, which I, for the most part, prefer this sculpt of Batman. But I do feel like for a Dark Knight Returns version of Batman, if you were gonna use one of these sculpts, this one is definitely the more appropriate because you can see he's a bit bulkier, a bit more barrel chested than this guy. How he's a little more lean, a little more Neil Adams. This guy's more Neil Adams. This guy's more Frank Miller. But still, I wish they had given him like just the head sculpt. I think would have been enough. Just give him a little bit of a head sculpt to make him look a little bit more like Frank Miller's Batman with like the stubbier ears and the wrinkles in the chest. The one thing that they did do that I think works as far as making this a Frank Miller Batman is they did do a really nice job on his chest emblem. That is very accurate to how Frank Miller often drew the chest emblem on the Batman when he did Batman comics. Now, unfortunately, mine, and I didn't notice this when I bought it at the store, but I did notice it after I got home. It's not quite focusing on it as well as I would like. There's like a little bit of discoloration here, almost where like in the plastic, it looks like it's in the plastic. It might be something else. I might be able to clean it off. But like a little bit of like white discoloration there, so that's kind of disappointing. Maybe I can get it off. A little bit of a black dot there. I was almost thinking maybe it was like the pigments in the plastic just didn't blend as well, but now I'm thinking I might be able to clean it off. That'd be nice if I could. I almost am tempted to take some Brasso to it, but I don't want to accidentally take the emblem off the figure, you know? So anyway, I'm going to put the cape back on the Iron Winch Batman that was made to go on him anyway, and go ahead and put this Batman, the cape, back on him that came with him, so I can take the picture for the thumbnail in a little bit. So for the most part, I'm pretty pleased with how this one turned out. I think he could have been better, like I said, if they had just done a couple of things, which is one, give him a new head sculpt, and B, they need to do something about that cape clip and the cut of the cape itself. But the cut of the cape isn't quite as much of a problem as the cape clip is. Excuse me. Probably about time for me to take a nap. But but yeah, I am glad I picked him up. He is really cool looking. I do like the way the colors kind of blend together and everything. So let's go ahead real quick. We'll get some shots of him. There he is with the first Mcfarlane Superpowers Batman, the Hush Batman, and here he is next to Batman of Zur-En-Arrh and Manga Batman. So that's all of them that I have with this sculpt so far, and my own custom of Earth 2 Batman. So there we go. And just for the sake of completions, let's have him over here. There he is next to the black version of Detective Batman and the blue and gray version of Detective Batman. And just for fun, since I have Fleischer Superman over here, let's go ahead and get these two guys together since they come in the same wave, so that makes sense. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Uh, Another fairly long superpowers episode. Usually I bang these out in like 10 minutes, but I did talk about a lot of stuff here that didn't necessarily apply specifically to this figure. So hopefully in the future, Mcfarlane will hear some of our issues with this particular iteration of Batman and do something about that. So that would be really nice. I'm about to go take a nap. It's about my nap time. My nap time is just whenever I get tired. So anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this Batman figure and the character of Batman in general. And we will talk to you next time. Bye. There it goes. Okay, it's over now.